At this point, we're going to be jumping into kind of our big New Genesis topic. What do you need to know about Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis? That is such a mouthful. Did anybody see the Conan thing?
No.
I saw part of it. Like I watched the beginning part of it, but other than that, I didn't
Is he
watch
playing
it.
New Genesis?
They, as a part of like their whole skit stuff. So they're basically were just making fun of the name, and then you have somebody who knows about the game or at least has all the marketing points about it, just kind of like making sure that that's being communicated, and then they just make jokes. Honestly, I thought it was very fun. I enjoyed the sense of humor of it overall, but that's gonna anyway. I just was kind of curious because I saw that.
I was in a chat the other day where somebody said NGS, and somebody goes, "I'm really excited about Phantasy Star," and somebody goes, "What's NGS?" And I said, "Phantasy Star," and they go, "How does NGS stand for Phantasy Star?"
Oh my god, yeah.
We'll get you there.
We'll get you there.
Is it you talk about Clueless Gamer?
Yes,
because he's done that before.
The Clueless Gamer, and they have kind of a group and thing like that. So they've been doing, it's been interesting to see what I would say old media shift into kind of starting adopting more kind of new media practices and things like that. So it's been exciting. But we're here. We've come to the part of the video. If you guys are just checking this out as a highlight, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, share, clip if you have that feature turned on. And if you guys are watching with us live, feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Chris is actually going to be filling the role of the everyman. When he plays video games, especially when he gets sold on them, he doesn't need any more additional information. New Genesis is launching this week on the 9th. That's June 9th. And so we figured it'd be a good time to catch everybody up on frequently asked questions. This post will actually be over on Reddit. I'll include a link in the description if you guys want to go read these for yourself. But hopefully the idea is that we're going to go through this, and then Chris or anybody else here can either elaborate or ask any additional questions, and hope that to have like this as a real like honest conversation about what is New Genesis. I've seen that happen over and over and over again. And it's fascinating as somebody who's been following it, going like, oh man, I have such exciting news. Do you need to install both games? No. Are they the same game? Yes, they are. Like it's like there's so much really cool stuff to kind of dive into. So with that, I'm going to start going through. We'll just kind of break it up by section. And then at any point, you guys just jump in if you have an additional follow-up question or you want to discuss any particular point. So what can I bring with me from PSO2 to New Genesis? And I'm just going to just call this New Genesis as opposed to saying the whole thing. Future, it's just too much. Anyway, weapons, units, aka armor, and mags, they will transfer to New Genesis, but they're going to behave differently. Your weapon stats, augments, and potentials will change. This is how you upgrade, get your power. This is essentially things that you unlock. Chris, think traits on your weapons. Think, different augments.
So am I going to be behind?
So
no.
I was behind when I joined you in 2.0.
Yes and no.
No.
Anybody can come from, let's say you had a 15 star in the current PSO2. That's going to translate to like a 4-star weapon. So it's going to be a little bit more powerful, but you're not coming in, and I'm not like, it's to me to get a 4-star. That's, you could go do a little bit of work, but you're not essentially like, oh, you're 5 item levels higher than me. Well, that's awesome. It's kind of a thank you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my concern was that like you're beating the first raid and I'm still leveling, and it's like, oh,
no,
well,
everybody starts out at level 1, but if you have a couple weapons or armors or something like that that can transfer over, that will transfer.
But I'm going to pass that with quest gear or whatever the equivalent is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to have
just thanks for playing the original. Here's a little boost for you.
That doesn't bother me. Just like best in slot will carry you a decent ways into Endwalker, but like brand new players that are just hitting cap right now, I'm like, just get to 500 and wait. Like it's not that much. Like the 500 to 530 gap, depending on how overwhelmed that person is a huge jump for what's going to really not last that long.
Right. I mean, just pick up cheap crafting gear at that point, though. 520 crafting gear.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
in 14,
you got 6 months.
To a new player.
You got 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. You can make some follow gaming kinda for guild tips and to be able to make some of that. Yeah. And it will be cheap. He'll teach you how to make 40 million by the time Endwalker hits or whatever your mouth calculation on that is, Chris.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Units will become armor that is not visible. Even units that have been obtained in PSO2 will become invisible in New Genesis. So much like weapon stats and augments, their potentials, their values will change. So you can carry it forward, but it's going to act differently in the new game. Mags are going to become more cosmetic. they're going to keep their evolutionary device data, but they're not going to be providing stats or combat benefits. One of the things go ahead, Chris. When he makes that
So
sound,
if armor is invisible, are all the veteran players going to be running around naked?
No.
No. So your armor is different than what your
fashion
what you would say your glamour is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I do like though is the evolution device is keeping their
look.
Their look because
what are mags?
So mags are the little trash can robots that, like in the PSO2, I call them trash cans because you feed them gear and you feed them items that you don't want, and that would level them up. And so they would follow you around, and then in PSO2 and PSO they gave you benefits like stat benefits, like they were made you. In this case, they are not giving you those kind of benefits, but they do have an in-game benefit in terms of how they help you function in the world. Think, hey, look over in this direction. Something's going on over here. Things like that to help communicate to you in the UI.
Or like the Ghost in Destiny 2.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. Well, Destiny is Phantasy Star. Like
we've had that conversation before.
Okay.
But I do like that because like one of my mags is skinned as Odin from 14, and the other one is skinned as a Sega Genesis.
And that encourages me to go jump back across the portal into the Legacy world and go grind this stuff.
If that's something you want.
If that's something you want, yeah.
You do not have to have both games installed. Like, it's the same game, but...
Yeah, I just jump through a portal. Like World Visitor, Data Center,
if you have it installed. You can literally... Like, PSO2 base is like 70 plus gigs. PSO New Genesis is like 30. If you install both, it's 100 gigs. You can literally say as a part of the installer, I only really want to live here, or I you get the choice on that.
Every game's 100 gigs now. Okay.
Every game is 100 gigs. It is worth noting that weapons and units transferred from PSO2 may not be immediately usable until your character reaches a certain level requirement. So if your 4-star weapon requires you to be at level 20 to use, well, you're just going to have to grind out to level 20. So even veterans might have that leveling experience. They just might have a little boost once they do hit cap. The following items have been confirmed to not transfer to New Genesis: skill rings, consumables, that's anything that uses for battle growth or enhancements, your boost items, boosters and tri-boosters, materials, room furnishings, any currencies other than Arcs Cash and Star Gems. So Arcs Cash and Star Gems are your premium currencies. AC is what you buy money for. SG is what the game rewards you with, and there's a way of transferring different things. And then your items, your item pack and inventory itself do not transfer. So if you're thinking of Meseta, if you've been farming Meseta, it's new Meseta in the New Genesis world. So everybody from an economy perspective is starting out.
New Gil.
I know. Everything has the N in front of it so far. And I was like, go ahead, Chili.
I was going to say, that sounds stupid in a way. They should have come up with a different currency.
They're really banking on not having to do this again.
Newer. Newest. I do like the fact that boosters don't transfer over, because that means that people that stockpiled before New Genesis aren't just going to be logging into New Genesis and suddenly be like, oh, look, I'm max.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Anyway, so while your AC and Star Gems can be shared between New Genesis, Meseta funds a currency that was in base PSO2. That's not going to be here. And other currencies greatly affect the balance of the game's economy or not be shared between the two games. And you'll have the new main currency in New Genesis. New Genesis is also going to have separate inventories. So your PSO2 inventory and your PSO2 New Genesis inventory are separate entities. Makes sense. You wouldn't want to be sitting here going like, oh, I got all this stuff I can't use. And your character growth, including class, levels, experience, class skills, photon arts, techniques, and titles will not transfer over. So those things are going to remain in the past, and then you're going to have to grind out from level 1 in New Genesis. But if you go back to PSO2, all your levels are there. So Chris, like you hit level 15 or 20 or whatever you got to, if you like jump back in, all of a sudden you're level 20 on that. Also, it's important to note Chris was playing a Summoner. Summoner is actually not coming into the game until 2022. They've been recently announced that. So as it goes, you only are going to have 6 classes, and then this August you'll have a 7th class. This fall you'll have an 8th class, and then like this winter 9th and so on. So they're going to continue to add in the missing classes over the course of the next year and beyond with that. All right.
I do want to touch on that a little bit later. If you don't mind, Brian.
No, let's just touch on it now because I'm I hate to miss the callback.
Yeah. So the one of the classes that they said in their quote unquote live letter was a Gunblade type class. Now they did put a Gunblade type class in base PSO2. It's called the Luster, so, and it's a Scion class. So I'm thinking maybe they're bringing this Scion class in as a base class, or it's going to be the first Scion class in the game or in New Genesis, which would be interesting.
Chris, do you know what a Scion class is?
It's your hunter, fighter, ranger, and everything would be your classes, and then the successor class would be your job.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to have certain requirements to unlock the Scion classes that they essentially were the other ones were just always open and available. The following fashion items will transfer to New Genesis: outerwear, outfit, body parts, arms, legs, weapons, items registered from tickets such as basewear, innerwear, body paint, hairstyle, head parts, accessories, emotes, voice, makeup patterns, stickers, eyebrows, eyelashes, eyes, and face variants. So, Chris, if you're looking to unlock varying looks, like the base game still has a lot of value. Like this list right here says, you want to look interesting? We've got so much of this stuff in the base game. You can go and grab it. I believe there are some restrictions in terms of what you can physically equip. So there might be a case by case piece variant or basis. Is that right, Soro? Or am I misunderstanding?
From past outlines and everything, yes, they did give a list of certain things that were not, or certain cosmetic things that were not available for transfer, but it looks like they're starting to get rid of that. So they're updating it looks like, and saying, oh yeah, you're good, don't worry about it.
So it's not like a Viera and Hrothgar hat situation?
You're about to answer everything you're saying.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Excellent. So how cosmetics for PSO2 and New Genesis will work and vice versa. I was like, I have the information in my head. I was like, I haven't memorized this outline over on Reddit. All outfits, wearable items, and cast parts from PSO2 will be used in New Genesis and vice versa. However, there will now be two different models, physiques, for your character depending on the game and the currently equipped outfit. Wearable items and cast parts or body parts originate from. It was also specifically mentioned that PSO2 body paint will not be usable on New Genesis's physiques, and that New Genesis body paint will not be usable on PSO2 physiques. So there are some restrictions based off of how you model out your character. And if you guys haven't seen, you can go download the benchmark today and actually create your character that you can have ready and to go for New Genesis, and you can play around. And it does have New Genesis physique options and base PSO2 physique options. So you do have the ability to kind of filter that as well. I for my character, I want all New Genesis because I think the models look so much more interesting. Chris, you look like you have a thought there?
No, I mean, I have played WoW since launch, and it will let you mix and match which this is not going to let you mix and match, and that's honestly protecting you. When you put on a vanilla set of shoulder pads and like a Shadowlands cloak, they don't look good together. Like for people that think the game has not matured graphically because they see a screenshot and think it's cartoony, it is very clear that 15 years has allowed them to increase the level of detail they put in there when you put those pieces side by side. So I think that's a really reasonable restriction up front, especially if their goal is for people to share screenshots and stuff, that there's not some weird clipping thing going on or some just lack of resolution when the new stuff might be supported as high as 4K or whatever.
So in addition, finger movement will only be available on the New Genesis physique. So they've added the ability to have fingers and thumbs up and different emotes like that. Face variants, hairstyles from PSO2 will be usable in New Genesis, although naturally those that come from New Genesis will be higher quality. And then from New Genesis, you'll be able to use those from New Genesis can only be used on the New Genesis physique. This does not apply to pupils, eyebrows, makeup patterns, and some from New Genesis, and these are not going to be usable in the PSO2 face variants. The pupils, eyebrows, eyelashes, makeup patterns, and PSO2 cannot be used on NGS's face variants. With that, really to kind of help, like if you're kind of like, I don't understand that phrase, go download the benchmark and play around with the characters, and you'll see what they mean by the different variants and physiques, because you can literally filter, just show me the New Genesis stuff or just show me the base PSO2 stuff, and there is a massive graphic quality update.
There is.
Even though PSO2 is getting upgraded. What's up?
I'm just saying there is.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference between the two.
I'm excited to see what your weird cowboy mash hat thing looks like. In
I
New
think I'm rolling a
Genesis
new
in high
character.
res.
I think I'm rolling a new character because it's like some of the models look so good. I was like, I've been playing around with just like a female Newman. I'm like, man, she looks great. Like,
Do you lose all your cosmetics when you do that?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're gonna let me like change my base character, and if they if they don't, then I'm just gonna play a new character. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Like some sort of Fantasia potion.
I mean, you probably end up having all of your cosmetics and stuff like that. That would be account wide,
Yeah.
as you would say. So you should be okay as long as you're logging in with the same account as you use for base PSO2.
Yeah, and that's the same account. So they've already, because like when we play in the beta, you're already on my friends list because we're friends on Xbox. So all that was already handled, even in the beta. So that was actually really good to see.
It was just hard to team up for a little bit there.
You cannot mix layered wear and or cast parts from both games, and all accessories in PSO2 will be usable in New Genesis. New accessories in New Genesis can be used in PSO2, but you're going to have greater customization as a part of New Genesis. So what about the features that you've actually spent real money on, AC and Star Gems, on things like crafting lines and extra collection file slots? Premium set is actually shared between games. So if you're subbed, there's one sub for New Gen, like for PSO2. This also includes material storage, extended storage, character storage, sub-palette expansion, and your personal shop. It is specifically mentioned, however, that because the different game systems, New Genesis's inventory expansion skill tree edition listed twice, expanded max orders limit, and personal quarters use will not take effect in New Genesis. They will continue to work in base PSO2. Basically tells me it's a new game. If you want, I guess, additional inventory space, you're going to have to spend some money. And I'm sure that they might have some kind of bundle. That's how I read that. Does anybody read that differently?
No, I read that about the same.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be something that's included in Game Pass.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's one of the things that I'm really curious to see if Xbox has any announcements at E3 this year with PSO2. Chris?
I don't know the reasoning behind this for this particular game, but having played a lot of MMOs over the year, when people ask for inventory as games get bigger, whether that be Guild Wars, Final Fantasy, it doesn't matter. Every game, inventory becomes an issue. Inventory is one of those things that continually, like, programmers set it out in a very static fashion when they build a game because they're like, this is plenty. And it is not uncommon for them to have baked it in. World of Warcraft had a 16 slot base backpack for a long time, which wasn't a big deal when you could only really get to like 14 slot bags. But as you got to where you had 20, 24, 32 slot bags and all your other slots, your base backpack felt like it was kind of holding your back. Why can't I just toss that in the trash and replace it with an upgraded bag that I'm happy to pay for or craft? And they said that the problem is that they numbered those inventory slots 1 through 16. And then they used slot 17 for like other stuff and slot 18 for other stuff. So the systems weren't really meant to grow. Final Fantasy runs into the same issue. They build this stuff here and then they build something right next to it. And so it doesn't expand over. So it is not shocking to me to see that inventory expansion is something that they're like, hey, we want to do it differently. So we're just going to like wipe your upgrades from before. You can keep them when you're in old content, but when you're in the new stuff, like we really need inventory to function differently. That doesn't surprise me. I imagine those of you that have spent money on inventory expansion for the base game are not going to feel real good about it. But I'm just telling you from having listened to a lot of developers talk about inventory specifically, it doesn't surprise me as a new player coming in to hear that they couldn't get that to function.
One of the things I like... Go ahead, Chris.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chili.
I was going to say, shame they can't do something like ESO2 does where you get unlimited space for crafting. Because if you sub to ESO2, you actually get a crafting bag, which actually has unlimited space.
Guild Wars 2 has a material storage that you push everything to. It can store every material that you can find in the game. Base, it's at 250 of that, and then you expand it. Maybe they, do we know that they didn't move to that? Because if they moved to that,
they did. I think that is, and I could be misremembering, so don't quote me on that if you're watching this, and we'll see if we get into that more here. But I remember hearing something about that. They also increased the base inventory. Base PSO 2 had a 50 slot at a minimum that starts at 100 slot, which feel like that immediately feels like they're not coming for you money. Because like at a minimum, I was like, if you're gonna do anything to enjoy your PSO2 experience, at least get 100 slots. Because just like with Guild Wars, they shower you with loot. It's a loot game. You want loot, and then all of a sudden you're like, and now I'm spending an hour doing inventory management and whatnot. And it's like, okay, get 100, and you're not gonna be leaving things on the battlefield, and just make sure you're going into each fight with 50 slots available. We'll see if they cover more of that crafting stuff, and if chat ends up knowing, you can always weigh in on that just to make sure that I'm not giving false information. What races will be in PSO2 New Genesis? Numens, humans, castes, Dumans. However, during character creation, you can actually select body type, which are human type 1, male and female, caste type male and female, but you can take parts from the different races and things like that. So like they really have the most impressive character design and build out that you have I think a lot of choice when it comes to your races. You have your pre-built designs, and then you can kind of go nuts, and you want to take apart from the Numans or the Dumans or the Humans and Boobumans, you're good to go on that regards. So these fields are huge. How does traveling in them work? Well, transitioning to new areas is as simple as walking into it, and there's no longer loading screens upon moving to new areas, even when going from the lobby to the field. The Ruker devices, I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, exist, I call them the giant green penises, exist throughout the field and act as your fast travel, and if you have your Photon Dash and your Photon Glide to navigate the fields faster as well. So just like our Aetheryte crystals in 14, Chris, these are just these big old towers that you can go to, and then once you kind of go to them, you unlock them, and then allows you to kind of jump around the map for free.
Are they expensive?
No, it's free. You just teleport
It's all
wherever
free.
you want. Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity, like to charge new Meseta. Go ahead.
How are they removing money from the game? Like, what does money serve as a function if there's no cost to my character doesn't need housing that it has to pay for every month. I don't have a utility bill, and I don't pay for travel. Like, are repairs expensive?
There isn't a repair system, but there is an upgrade system.
The upgrade system will take your Meseta really quick.
All
right. Let the inflation begin.
Let the inflation begin. So how do enemy spawns work in these massive fields? Explaining this requires the explanation of the sections and the adventure areas, as they're called. So exploration sections of the map are going to have you have more gather materials and ingredients from both the fauna, different just passive enemies out there, monster or cows or like things to farm, and various what they call tame monsters. These monsters appear to spawn randomly in the section, and killing them will give you materials. Aggressive enemies can actually also spawn in these areas, but they're just big. And yeah, that's kind of how they're focused. Now, battle sections are going to have you fight enemies, which consist of dolls and altars, and combat evolves around running towards the target marked within either E for enemy spawn or T trial. And when the emergency trial is taking place, these markers work similarly to how they worked in the Tokyo, Las Vegas area in PSO2, where enemies spawn near the markers. So when you're running around the map, if there's an event, whether it's just a kind of a fate of a bunch of enemies with an E, or a bigger boss kind of enemy with a T, that's going to kind of how that functions, and you'll see that pop up, and the goal is just to navigate people to them. Now, exploration sections can consist of like 32 people, like in that specific instance of it, and the game just kind of handles the self-instancing of these exploration zones. And then the battle sections are going to have where you have 8 people. So like you're not going to run into a group of E and you're going to see 100 people. You'll see no more than 8 people as a part of that specific chapter. Go ahead.
It sounds a bit like Boja zones in Final Fantasy XIV, basically. Boja/Sandor, where there's a limited amount of people, and then you have 8 people that go to do the trial.
Because you've got 32 in the large zone, and only 8 are allowed inside the critical engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the same.
32 is not that many.
No, it's not.
That's really intimate.
But it's also weird where if you're in a party with somebody and they instance in with you into that zone, it can actually go over that 32. So you can have like 35 people if you're in a party of 4 people, and you just go into.
Was it like Guild Wars 1 or like Diablo games where like I'm kind of out in the world in these relatively intimate zones, and then the interaction with the rest of the community happens when I'm in hubs?
So PSO2 as a base is very hub and content. This handles all of that behind the scenes. So it's both massive and yet intimate in that regards. So when you transition, the game is just going to automatically kind of balance itself out so that you can have an experience that's designed for that. Because if all of a sudden you're not going to see 100 people in the same area, but then they have bigger bosses that will spawn in the exploration sections that bring in more people and make that event kind of this really big critical engagement style piece of content. And then you can go back into the lobby, but all this happens without loading screens, so the game just kind of handles it, so you never really even notice it happening. You just kind of feel like you're having this intimate experiences. You're playing with other people, whether they're in your party or not in your party, and then you can go back into the lobby and you can interact with like pretty much anyone.
Once I'm in an exploration zone, am I getting jumped into other exploration zones to continue to load balance the server, like WoW's shard system?
I don't know, actually.
Or am I getting opted over, like Guild Wars system, where they're asking me to jump over? Or do I have to go back to the hub and go back out, like Final Fantasy?
You don't have to return. You don't have to return. Like, literally, my experience is the game's just managing it. So instead of maybe even being
there's going to be pros and cons to that, depending on how they're doing it.
Right. So
I want to see if the community can, like, you said that, what's the biggest, is 4 people the biggest group?
Yeah, party size is 4 people.
Yeah, party size is 4.
But you can alliance.
Imagine what if the community tries to, like, jump in with, like, 32 groups of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So in World of Warcraft, there was some changes to the way loot mechanics worked, and it resulted in people abusing it in what they call these 4x2 farms. And it basically, like, quintuples or more the amount of loot you get per hour, and it just breaks the game. Like, it's like, oh, you're playing the game and you get 2,000 cloth per hour or whatever, but we could do this as a group and all 8 of us get 50,000 each per hour. Like let's just shoot this to the moon here. So if that is possible, that will result in loot mechanics that were not intended, because you would end up with 128 people in the zone. And that's just going to break things. That's going to trigger all sorts of weird spawning and whatever the server answers that with.
It also sounds like what caused the mass bannings in Fantasy XI back in the day. Someone found out, I can't remember what fight it was now. I think it was one of the end game areas, but you're only supposed to get 1 drop per alliance. But they found out if you disbanded the party just before the boss, it then forced the drop to be in every party.
And everybody's their own party, so everybody gets loot.
So everyone got banned because of this eventually, but they didn't fix it for like 6 months. So people weren't knowing it was an exploit. There was this mass ban wave where people were like, "What did I do?"
I got kicked from party.
And then I got banned. Welcome to 14.
Then I got banned.
Oh man, that's horrible. So is the game going to be free to play? And New Genesis is keeping the same model that PSO2 has. It's a free to play game. The entire game is playable at no cost. Premium items are still available, and a My Shop feature has also been seen. And so essentially, if you're subscribed as a part of their optional subscription, you'll have access to be able to sell on the markets. You can always buy from the markets, but you cannot put items up for sale. So that's going to just be one way that the game manages it. And then they also have, Arcs Cash, which they have loot boxes. They have all different things. The nice thing about the system is that if you get something you don't want from the loot box, you can sell it on the market if you're subscribed. And somebody who is playing this game just for free can literally buy the content and stuff, with in-game currency. So that's always something I've appreciated about their free-to-play model. So what's going to happen to the original PSO2? That's a really good question. You can actually play in both universes, as Chris talked about earlier. We talked about the start of this. You can actually play them side by side. You can even choose whether you want to have the old PSO2 installed on your system. If hard drive space is a premium, you'll have that ability to say, you know what, I'm good. I don't need that glamour. And then if you're like, oh my gosh, how do you get that? And someone's like, oh, you got to go get that in the base game. Then you can install it and go try to figure that out for yourself. Regarding classes, so what classes are going to be here in New Genesis? Hunter, Fighter, Ranger, Gunner, Force, and Techer. Braver is coming in August, Bouncer this fall, and Summoner is at least spring 2022. So Chris, you're gonna have to pick a new class when checking out this game. What interests you the most? What do you think? Like, is there an archetype I can point you to?
Well, I mean, I've always enjoyed Hunters and Druids in games personally, but it's because I main Warrior through a series of events now in 14, I found that playing a straightforward melee combat tanky class has made the games very comparable for me. And so as somebody that is trying to play multiple MMOs at once, like, it's easier for my brain to wrap around what makes these games different if I make the class as apples to apples as is possible. Obviously, some games that's easier than others. Like in WoW and 14, I can play almost the same thing, but by the time you introduce Guild Wars, the Holy Trinity kind of falls apart and the whole thing falls out the window. So from that list, like I assume that I'm looking at fighter.
Fighter is a
If
lot
you
of
want
fun.
to go, fighter is a lot of fun. It's more if you're looking at the golden trifecta. Fighter is more of a DPS,
Okay.
close range.
What's the
Hunter would be
tank?
more. Hunter would be your tank.
Great.
That's usually what I main as well, just
Do I get a
because it's no, you don't. Your pet is technically your mag.
All right.
It's like, I want to give me a panther. Like we said, more classes are coming later. For the successor Scion classes, it appears that some of the traits have actually made their way to Hunter, Ranger, and Force. Hunter now has a counterattack that they can perform by dodging through an attack, and much like Hero, they can also swing their sword one-handed sometimes, and they can also perform another kind of counterattack when pressing the attack button right after a perfect guard. Ranger not only has gained the counterattack from dodging attacks similar to Hero and Phantom, but they have now a dedicated rifle weapon action and that actually flings you in the direction you choose, kind of like a cross between Phantom's rifle and Ranger's rifle. Force has gained the mobility of Etoile's wand, floating around when they are holding their rod. Like their Barta, it also creates a marker on enemies that can be detonated, similar to the Phantom markers, and their photon blasts shoot giant lasers similar to Etoile's wand's luminous flare photon art. They can also now guard with their rod, much like Etoile's wand as well. Now, our monomates and atomizers are still available. So healing items in this game are actually gathered from flower-looking objects in the field. You heal yourself using the rest of signs, and they can actually stack up to 10 times and are consumed using them from your sub-palette. These rest of signs are also gathered from the green flower-looking objects. Reverser signs take place of moon atomizers and are gathered from yellow flowers-looking objects in the field, and they can be stacked up to 5 times. So you're not going out buying monomates and moon atomizers. They're just out in the field, so it just kind of helps encourage gathering and collection of the different items, which I kind of find a little bit strange at first, but at the core of it, it made sense because you're not going to have to keep running back to the city to buy monomates or something like that, which also takes the thing Gilsync out of the game.
It felt really nice too in the beta.
Yeah, it actually felt really nice in this regards. Story and world. When and where does New Genesis take place? So it's set 1,000 years after the events of PSO2 and the new generation of Arcs settled on planet Halpta. Conflict would soon arise as the threats from outer space, the Dolls, began. Like Dolls is such a I still haven't got over that term, but it just seems like this interesting name, and I'm like Dolls. Like I keep thinking because I have kids, I'm like. Yeah. They're just falling from the space. Around the time they began appearing, mysterious individuals known as meteor fell from the sky, and despite possessing no memories of their past, these individuals possess skills that make them effective at combating Dolls, and ultimately join Arcs to combat this threat. All right, so let's see here. There's a Visiphone, New Genesis world, names of the field. Yes, we know we're not going to go through the map of the game, so we're going to keep adding. It's a massive map. It's massive. So we've talked about this a little bit. Well, you actually need to install the client to play New Genesis. You have the ability at the launcher to pick what version of the games you want. So if you want both, it's going to cost you around 700 gigs of memory. If you just want New Genesis, it's 30. If you just want PSO2 base, it's 70. And that's going to be how it functions. Let's get into platforms.
Interesting.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. I just read that on your screen. For other platforms, such as on PS4, the existing PSO2 stage will be replaced with New Genesis.
Don't even worry about the PS4 version of it. That is JP only.
Japanese only.
We can download it.
Yeah, you can. You can play on the PS4 and on the Japanese server. Absolutely. Yeah. So for those who don't know, here in the West, it's Xbox, PC. That's where it's going to be. Steam, Epic Game Store, like it's on all those. However, it should come to PlayStation. I would believe that it is a timed exclusive, and that we will eventually see it on
probably
PlayStation.
2 years.
It would make sense. It's weird that the fact that it is on Xbox and it's not launching in Japan on Xbox. So in Japan, it's not like PS4 and Xbox. But that is a little bit strange in my opinion.
They probably just don't think there's not enough market in Xbox in Japan.
Oh yeah, I would say that's definitely a fact. It just seems that. Okay, you already have the work done. It's already done. all right, like let's just just hit publish on this other platform. The Japanese version, like we said, is going to release on Windows and PlayStation 4. A cloud version is going to be available for Switch and Windows. So if you don't you can play PSO2 on the Switch, which is great, but that's only in Japan. Nice. Global version, that's North America, Europe, and anywhere that it is in the list. These are going to release on Windows 10, Steam, Xbox One, Series X. It's also on Epic Game Store. New Genesis is also going to release on any additional platforms, which PSO2 will be made available on. So I wonder if we'll get some new announcements at E3 this year. Now, can your PC run it? It is a beastie game, and I think Chris can run it without any problem, but a lot of people were playing the beta, and they're like, holy crap, like my PC won't run it. Low quality, obviously 64-bit operating system, Windows 8.1 or greater, CPU, an i5-9400 or equivalent, 8 gigs of RAM, 100 gigs of space for both games. That will run at least 720p. GeForce Now, GTX 950, Radeon, an R9 or equivalent, and DirectX 11. And then if you want to go to high quality, you need an Intel Core i9, 10900, 16 gigs of RAM, RTX 270 or equivalent and higher. And then will it run on Mac or Linux? I thought this would be a fun thing for Chris. As long as NProtect GameGuard acts as PSO2's anti-cheat, no. You're going to have to use the virtual machine of Windows running it, which would not work on the new Macs with the M1 chip. And if you're curious why GameGuard doesn't work on Wine, it relies on the kernel mode driver, which Wine cannot handle currently. So if you're wanting to run this on a Linux or a Mac system, unfortunately, you are out of luck. Hopefully that was...
Wine's always hit and miss. It's not a perfect 1-to-1.
Chad's asking, when is it going to be available to download? I'm gonna venture to bet maintenance kicks off on the 7th. I'm gonna venture to bet that it's going to be somewhere between the 7th and the 8th. The game officially is supposedly coming online like at 3 a.m. on the 9th here in the West. So I'm gonna guess that sometime Monday or Tuesday you'll be able to download the game.
I can't remember who caught this, but someone earlier also asked another question. It was from Chuck Post. It was a while ago now. I got in a notepad document just in case. Is it more beneficial to keep your character, or if you start a new one, it won't make that big of a difference? So, and it was directed to Ginger Prime.
There are account unlocks that you have, and so in my case, I'm planning on actually just rolling a new character unless they let me change my current existing character. And that's just my plan. I'm just like, I'll just make a new character and start over with New Genesis with the new model, because I love how just the designs work. I didn't really care. I was always kind of going for the ugliest looking character I could make in PSO2. And now in this case, it's like, the models are just, they're beautiful, especially the female form in this regards. I was like, daggone, that's like really nice. I'm probably going to play that. So that's what I created as a part of that. So I don't think you're going to see too massive of a difference, because nothing game breaking is going to, not come across. And then at the same time, everything else that I have and care about is account bound. But if you're worried about it, I don't know, like just make a character and kind of make your choice. That's just my thought there.
Like,
are there racial abilities to determine starting area?
No.
So it's purely cosmetic.
Purely cosmetic. Thank you so much for checking out this highlight from Epic Loot Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, and more. And check out our other channels, Ginger Gaming Radio, Ginger Prime, and Work to Game for more content. Thanks for being here, and you're awesome.